All right, good morning. So what I want you to do now is I want you to try to paint along with me. So I'm going to talk about the different ways that we build up layers when we're doing a watercolor that's a little different than what we do when we are just coloring. So the first thing you need to do is you need to get yourself a board. Once you have your board, you want to put it at an angle. So all I've done is very fancy. I just grabbed a rock and I just have a rock under my board so that when I paint, basically the board is slanted so that the water, like I'm always controlling the beat of water. The water is going to go towards gravity, which means that all my color will naturally flow downward. Now I don't want it to be too angular because sometimes that'll cause too much dripping, but just a little bit of an angle works really well, but you sort of feel what you want to feel. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of watercolor paper. Now, I want you to look at it closely, and you'll notice that the watercolor paper has two sides, and one side has a little bit more texture than the other. So that is the side that you want to paint on. So you're going to take your piece of paper, and you're going to take some masking tape. And what you're going to do is you're going to anchor the paper to the board. So this does two things. First of all, when we get the paper wet, the paper is going to want to it's going to want to curl, and so by anchoring it down we're going to stop it from curling so it'll dry flat. And the other thing is that what we're going to do is we're going to create like a nice frame around it so that, you know, if you ever wanted to put a frame on it, you wouldn't be covering any of the actual drawing, you would just be covering the little white border. So this is kind of a really nice way to automatically frame your work. All right, so moving on. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you use masking tape because masking tape is designed specifically to be able to peel off the paper. Like if you just use Scotch tape, the problem is you run a higher risk of actually accidentally like pulling up the paper, which you don't want to do. All right, so now that we are finished, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure we get our water and our watercolor. So the thing that we always start with is we're gonna start with washes. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna wet the entire paper. So I'm gonna take my paintbrush, I'm gonna get some water on it, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and wet the paper. So what this does is this is going to create a nice surface for us to let the water flow. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to put down our color. So we are doing a, it's like 3 boats in a sunset. So I'll post a picture of the original picture on the video. All right, so we're gonna take our palette. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mix up, we kind of want a couple of different colors. We're gonna want like a purplish color, an orangish color. Now you'll see I did not clean my palette out. And the reason that's okay is that, you know, sometimes you can go back and kind of look at color and reuse them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some color and I'm gonna get this blue wet, get this working again, because I want it. All right, there's my blue, lots of water. So when we do this, we want, I forgot to mention, you also need paper towels or a rag because you're gonna use it. So I really like this color, so I'm gonna wet this color as well. So one of the things that you wanna do, which I didn't do, is you usually wanna mix up all your colors before you get it wet because the water will create, what do you call it? The water will, you know, start to dry while you're mixing your colors. So I'm gonna just take a minute and I'm gonna grab some purple and a little bit of red together. All right, so now I have like a nice purpley red. I actually wanna make it even more red. So I'm gonna grab more red. I I just want like a maroonish color. So this is obviously, we're doing washes first, so they're gonna be really light colored. This is red and orange, in case you're wondering. And we're gonna grab some blue. And, all right, so now we have our little pile of blue here. We've got that red and we got that purple. Okay, so now I have my colors. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start out and I'm just gonna lay down some blue. So what I want you to notice is, because it's wet, do you see how it's bleeding a little? So I can take some water and I can actually soften that a little bit so it kind of fades into nothing. So we don't have this like sharp line. We just kind of want to let the water flow a little. Now we're gonna take this darkish color and we're gonna put it here on the bottom. Now notice how it's gonna flow upward. So we're doing that. We're just creating a base for the photo too. And then, you know what? I also want to make some yellow. So I'm going to make some yellow here. Ooh. So I'm going to take some yellow here. And actually, you know what? I want some orange too. So take my purplish color, spread it out, let that become a thing. Let's see, what are we doing? What's orange? And this is, let me see if I can grab some of this. There we go. Make some orange here. I want some orange. And then I think I actually want some yellow orange. So I'm gonna put some yellow in here and a little bit of orange. And we'll stir that up. What a nice orangey color. Okay, so then I'm just gonna kind of lay this in. And maybe a little here. Okay, now I have all these colors and I want them to mix a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dry my brush. Grab a paper towel. I'm gonna dry off the excess moisture in my brush. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, you know, try to get this to just kind of blend a little bit. You can kind of see that the paper is a little bit, it's starting to dry a little because I made some poor choices. All right, so that is great, we have that. Now the next thing I'm gonna wanna do, I'm gonna put in some clouds. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna take my paper towel, I'm gonna get it in a tiny little ball. I might even, you know what? I'm gonna actually tear off like a little piece like this. And I am just gonna dry. I waited too long. So you can kind of see I am just lifting out a little bit. You can kind of see, I don't know if you can see that, but I just want to show you how nice that is. Like the clouds just kind of in there. It's really, really nice. Like I can go back and I'm gonna add some more color there, but what it does is it kind of lifts out some of the color. So let me pull you back. There we are. Cool. Sorry about that, my finger. All right, so next we are gonna want a little bit more like darkness down here. We want this color. So I am just gonna put that down. And a little bit more. And in the sky, you know, there's a little bit here. So I'm just gonna tap on that and let it bleed in. There we go. All right. So, the next step is probably gonna be, we wanna let this dry. So, one of the things you can do to let this thing dry is you can actually walk away, go get, I don't know, a cup of tea, coffee, something to drink, or if you're impatient like myself, use your hair dryer and just go ahead and give it a blow. So we want to be careful when we're watercoloring that we control the water. So if we want it dry, we got to make sure our paper is dry. Okay, so like I said before, we control the water the way that we want the water to flow. So, all right, so that is done. So the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna create a horizon line with some tape. So this is sort of like masking. So what I can do is I will create this line for the horizon, and then everything I do and all of the flow will only occur on the top part. So it'll really help me kind of figure out how I want the sky to be. And like what you'll notice, or at least in the photograph I'm using, right at the horizon, it is the lightest. So basically I'm gonna work a lot of color on the top and a lot of color on the bottom. And hopefully that center area will kind of stay relatively light. Okay, so here we go. There we go, that's perfect. So there we go. So you don't ever want to stick it like flat smack dab in the middle, because there's like this thing called the rule of thirds. So you always want to make sure, generally speaking, you'll notice that things happen in like quadrants. So, you know, I did that wrong. Hold on. So let's do there. Okay. Okay, so quadrant. So basically, you'll notice that if we divide this in thirds, this is like the lower third of the paper. So for now, we're gonna leave that alone and we are just gonna work up here. So the first thing we're gonna do is we are just gonna grab some water. I'm gonna dry my paintbrush. So what we're gonna want, I kind of want like a purpley blue. So I've got the blue here. I am just gonna pick up a little bit of purple, stick it in there, and I kind of like it. Let's see, maybe I want a little more blue. Boop, boop, boop. All right, that's a nice color. All right, so now that I have this color mixed, I'll leave that there for you to see. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my paintbrush. I'm gonna get all the water out of it. Oops, look at my little booger. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to paint with water. So I want to make clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the water where I want the clouds to be, and then I'll put some color in, and the color should kind of flow in that area. So this is my first shape here. So I'm painting just water there. And then I'm going to take this, and it is kind of darkest on the bottom. So watch, I'm gonna put that color in, and it is gonna spread out. Now what you'll notice is it'll give me like a sharp line there, and on the top, it's kind of gonna, fade away. So I can take another paintbrush. This is the 5, but use whatever paintbrush you want, and I can fade out that color a little bit. All right, and I also want to do the same thing up above. So I'm going to take that paintbrush a little bit. I'm going to take off the extra water. Actually, I want a little bit of water. All right, and then this one, I'm just going to go like this. And again, I'm going to take this color, and I'm just going to put it in this space. There it is. And the water kind of flows. Now there's also a little bit of a color change at the end. So I'm going to take from here, I'm going to take this color that I already made before, and I'm just going to put it in. So what happens is, they'll flow into each other because it's wet. So I get that like nice color change there. And I'm gonna let that go. And then I kind of want, I should have, I need more water. So I'm gonna grab my paintbrush, bloop, bloop, bloop. I should have made this go all the way across, but I didn't. So while this is still watery, I am going to move it across, like so. So notice This is just the water kind of moving across. So I'm going to take that blue color that I made before, and I'm going to put it in on the bottom. There it is. And on the top of that cloud, I want that